Hi guys! So I have been meaning to make this video for quite a while, in fact since 3 months back, but I just didn't get around to it, and also I didn't have enough courage to make it. However, I finally found enough time and also enough courage to make this video. So in today's video, I want to talk about this Korean TV show called Joseon Exorcist and the reasons why it got cancelled. So for those of you who don't know, Joseon Exorcist is a Korean TV show set in ancient Korea during Joseon Dynasty, and it follows the Joseon royal family who fight the evil spirits to save Joseon. However, the show was cancelled just after 2 episodes were aired. Furthermore, this decision to cancel the show was made in spite of huge financial losses because the production company has paid for most of the broadcasting rights for this show and also had already finished filming more than 80% of the show before its premiere. So obviously canceling the show cost them a huge financial loss. I know! So why did this happen? As soon as the first episode was aired, the show was met with a huge backlash from Korean viewers who were really upset with historical inaccuracies and the presence of Chinese props and food in the TV show that was set in ancient Korean kingdom. Noticing this reaction from Korean viewers, more than 20 South Korean companies that were sponsoring the show, including Samsung Electronics and LG, they decided to withdraw their advertisements, and also more than 160,000 Korean people had signed a petition to the presidential Blue House asking for the show to be removed. This put a lot of pressure on SBS, which was the broadcasting network of this TV show, and eventually resulted in their decision to cancel the show.
Oh no!
And I noticed that a lot of international viewers of this show was really upset by the decision to cancel this show because they really enjoyed the unique storyline and cinematography of the TV show. And a lot of people thought the Korean viewers were overreacting and oversensitive about the whole thing. And I totally understand your frustration over your favorite show getting cancelled, especially when you didn't have any say in it. However, I also think that it is unfair to accuse Korean viewers of being irrational and oversensitive without fully understanding the background and the ongoing conflict between Korea and China. So in today's video, I would like to delve into these topics. So hopefully by the end of this video, the whole controversy surrounding this TV show will start to make more sense to you guys and you would come to understand the reaction from Korean viewers. And without further ado, let's get started. To fully understand and appreciate the background that led to the cancellation of this show, you have to understand two main things: China's Northeast Asia project and cultural appropriation. So what is China's Northeast Asia project? It refers to a national academic project funded by Chinese government on the history of the northeast part of China, which is most commonly known as Manchuria. This project was a 5-year research project which lasted from 2002 to 2007. This project was launched by the Chinese Academy of Social Science, CASS, and as I already mentioned, it received a lot of financial support from Chinese government. So the main aim of this project was basically to do academic research on the history of this region of China and to restore historical facts. So when you first hear the official aim of this project, it doesn't sound fishy at all. You would think, so what's wrong with it? It's good that you are doing research into part of your country, right? Well, this project was very controversial, especially from the perspective of Korean people, because of the controversial claim that this project makes regarding Korea. So if you look at this map, this part of China, Manchuria, historically, it has been owned by Korea's ancient kingdom, Goguryeo, and also Bare. So historically, this part of China was under the rule of Korean kingdom for many years. However, this project claims that this Korean kingdom, which owned this part of China, was in fact a part of China and not the independent sovereign state of Korea. In other words, this project is saying that this Korean kingdom was in fact not a Korean kingdom, but it was a regional government of China that was under control of central Chinese government. This project further goes on to claiming that people of Goguryeo were in fact not Koreans, but one of those Chinese ethnic minorities, and that Korean people don't share any blood with people of Goguryeo. So what this project does is it basically denies a part of Korean history in which Goguryeo had played a fundamental role in shaping Korean history. And as I mentioned, this project was funded by Chinese Communist Party, CCP, so it's highly unlikely that this project was not contaminated by the nationalistic and political motives by China. Although Northeast Project has officially ended in 2007, Chinese government has not stopped its efforts to distort Korean history in favor of China. Indeed, now they have taken it to the next level in the form of cultural appropriation. To some extent, China's cultural appropriation can be attributed to the rise of K-pop, Korean movies, and K-TV dramas. As Korean culture begins to become more and more popular, not only in Asia, but also increasingly in West, China begins to lay claim to Korean culture that appeals to large international audience. In other words, Chinese Communist Party has been aggressively trying to appropriate the Korean cultural assets that have high economic and historical values in global market. There are so many cultural assets that China is trying to take away from Korea. But in recent years, Korean Hanbok and Korean Kimchi have been the main sources of cultural feuds between Korea and China. Hanbok is a traditional Korean costume, and in recent years, Hanbok has drawn more and more global attention thanks to the success of K-pop and Korean TV shows. It is embraced more and more by K-pop idols, who have not only become famous celebrity but have also taken on the role of ambassadors of Korean culture abroad. A lot of K-pop idols have started wearing hanbok during their stage performance. For example, BTS are often spotted wearing hanbok. Other than through K-pop idols, another way in which hanbok became well known to international audience is through Korean period dramas. One salient example is the Korean drama series Kingdom, which became a huge success on Netflix. Kingdom, a popular Korean period drama series on Netflix, which is set during Joseon Dynasty, has sparked a lot of interest in hanbok among its international viewers. Noticing such positive responses from the viewers of Kingdom and also the fans of K-pops, the Chinese government then began to claim that Korean hanbok in fact belongs to China by claiming that Korean hanbok originated from China's Ming Dynasty. Now, China displays more and more hanbok as its traditional clothing through various media platforms in an effort to rebrand Korean hanbok as a Chinese traditional outfit.
Oh no!
For example, in the latest Chinese TV shows such as Royal Feast and The Sleuth of Ming Dynasty, you can see more and more Chinese actors wearing what appears to be hanbok. This is sharply contrasted by the Chinese traditional costumes that have appeared in the past Chinese TV shows and movies. In other words, Chinese traditional costumes appearing on those TV shows and movies have become more and more similar to Korean hanbok. This was definitely not missed by Korean people. Noticing the remarkable similarity, Korean viewers have raised a concern, to which the writer of Royal Feast responded, Korea was a vassal state of China during the Ming Dynasty. Those clothes are from the Ming Dynasty. Other Chinese viewers have also commented that the Korea was a subordinate to China at the time of Ming Dynasty, and therefore Korean clothing hanbok belongs to China. You might have heard about kimchi battle or kimchi war between Korea and China. Don't worry if you haven't heard about it because I'm going to break it down for you. Kimchi war is the latest cultural feud between Korea and China. According to UN, kimchi is a Korean name for preserved vegetables seasoned with spices and fermented seafood, cabbage kimchi being the most common version. Kimchi is at the heart of Korean culture as it is a daily staple food in Korea, and there's an annual ritual of people getting together to make kimchi. The whole act is called kimjang in Korean, which has also been listed as an intangible cultural heritage by the UN Cultural Organization, UNESCO. There's even a kimchi museum in Seoul called Kimchi-gan, which gives visitors a quick survey of 1,500-year history of kimchi. This cultural battle between Korea and China began towards the end of 2020 when Chinese state-run newspaper Global Times claimed that China had received an international certification for kimchi. However, what it had received was one for pao chai, which is Chinese-style salted fermented vegetables. International Organization for Standardization, short for ISO, which issued this certificate, clearly pointed out in their document that this does not apply to kimchi. However, despite this clarification by ISO, China's state-run Global Times hailed this certification for the quote, kimchi industry led by China, the statement of which angered so many Koreans. This was exacerbated when the famous Chinese YouTuber Li Ziqi posted on YouTube a video of her making kimchi, tagging it as Chinese food. The comments made by Chinese netizens and international users that a lot of Korean food owes to Chinese food further infuriated a lot of Koreans. China's latest claims to kimchi seems very ironic in the light of what happened back in 2017. Back then, there were a lot of anti-Korean sentiments in China, and eventually a lot of Chinese consumers decided to boycott South Korean consumer goods from Samsung and LG, as well as Korean food, kimchi. So now China is claiming that kimchi belongs to China, but then why did they boycott it back in 2017 to put pressure on South Korean government? It just doesn't make sense. China's attempt to take over Korean culture has become more and more bold in recent years. And amid the ongoing tension between Korea and China, this TV show Joseon Exorcist added fuel to fire. By featuring a lot of Chinese culture on Korean TV show set during Korean dynasty, it angered so many Korean viewers who immediately became reminded of China's Northeast project in the past and also their recent cultural appropriation. As Korean shows are starting to be watched more and more by the international audience, many of whom are not necessarily well aware of the difference between Korea and China and also Korean history, this show was very alarming to a lot of Koreans that it might impart false impression about Korean history and culture. This would make it easier for China to push its agenda to rewrite Korean history and also to further claim that Korea has been a part of China, which is not true. Besides featuring a lot of Chinese culture on the show has also misrepresented the historical figures in Korea. The show involves the great King Sejong, who invented our own independent character, Korean, and he's a great king adored by so many Koreans. And to see our great King Sejong eating Chinese food, which we have not even heard of or seen before, was very culturally and historically offensive to many Korean viewers. China's Northeast Project in Korea is one of the many historical research projects carried out by CCP, Chinese Communist Party, because they have also conducted it on Tibet, Xinjiang, and Hong Kong as well. And they are doing this to incorporate these regions into China by rewriting their history. And we know what happened to Hong Kong and what is still happening to Chinese Muslims in Xinjiang province. And there's still ongoing independence movement in Tibet. In other words, Chinese Northeast Project on Korea should be located within a bigger picture of China attempting to become a dominant power in Asia by oppressing ethnic minorities in China and ignoring the independent and autonomous history of Korea. Whether you believe it or not, media is a political tool and it has great power over us, playing a huge role in shaping our perception and beliefs. If we had let this show continue, instead of watching authentic Korean culture and history, we would have been exposed to distorted history that serves political interests of China. And of course, we want to know accurate facts as a modern-day citizen living in a globalized world. I noticed that there has been a petition going around among the international viewers of this show to bring this show back. I'm sorry, but this is just plainly wrong. It should be stopped. I'm sorry that you're sad about this show getting cancelled. And if you're really like a hardcore fan of Korean zombie show, I highly recommend that you watch Kingdom instead, which is available on Netflix. So that was all for me today. I hope that you enjoyed today's video. Please leave the comment below. I really look forward to hearing what you guys thought about today's content. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you again in my next video. Bye!